So you can see them walking back and forth a lot more now. Alright, let me just leave it at that. I know it's not very good. It doesn't look very good, but let's see if that's more functional for the villagers than before. I'm gonna take this stuff. Put some wood back over here. Wood and things. I have sticks. Alright, let's go back to digging. I don't know if that improves things. I hope it does improve things. I was at the other end. So now let's say that has been dug out. That's been dug out. Good. So now here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, back to this. Torch. And then boundary. And then torch. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and torch, and boundary. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh wait, I missed the torch. I missed the torch. Alright, there you go. And then there's that in the middle, there's that in the middle. Alright, so I'm going to keep going with this pattern. The plan is that by the time I'm done with this pattern, we can just mine everything out and all the torches will be in place. And we don't have to count the torches from that point onwards. Right, so boundary. There's that. And torch. And boundary. So what I'm hoping is that the villagers were stuck in the inn because there were some pathing issues and they couldn't get downstairs. And I'm hoping that now that I have changed the stairs, they will now come down the stairs and wander around outside more often, because I need them to find the town hall again. And then after that, I need them to find this place, because otherwise they won't expand the village. I mean, this just... Okay, this is the right one? Okay, that's the right one. The thing is, like, the villagers, like, everything depends on the AI of the villagers. Like, the whole... Everything they do is automated. And so, whether they do anything useful or not depends entirely on their AI, but their AI is far from perfect. again, I come back to issues like this, and I talk about how in games like Fallout 4, your companions never die by themselves. Like, they can get injured by themselves, but they never die by themselves. And the reason they did that is because they know the AI is not reliable enough to keep itself alive. Like, it does, every now and then it will pass itself off a cliff and it just fall off a cliff. And, every now and then they'll get into city combat with a bunch of death claws for no reason. So, like, the AI is okay, like, it's not great. But, it's far from perfect. But then Bethesda understands that, right? And so they don't have you relying on the AI to keep your companions alive, because otherwise your companions are sure to die 100%. Alright, so now we can take everything out down here, and there should be no more problems with torches. Whereas in this game, there are certain things that depend on the AI, but the AI kind of fails. Like, and when the AI fails, there's no other thing to compensate for it, right? So like the villagers, their pathfinding fails, and so they just fail the village. Or they walk off cliffs and over again until they die. That used to happen with my skyscraper somewhere else anyway. So this, if you don't know what the skyscraper was, basically it was a tall building, and I wanted to put villagers in it, but the villagers would like fall off over and over again until they died, and so then the villagers all died. It was kind of sad. But like the idea that villagers can kill themselves, but they don't necessarily breed by themselves. I mean, they're supposed to, but we're playing with mob briefing off, so they don't. Or you can't manually tell the villagers that there are more doors. Like you rely on the villagers to automatically find doors, but then they don't pathfind properly, so then they never find the doors. So like there are things you depend on the AI to do by itself, and if it doesn't do it properly, then it doesn't work at all. And there's no way to compensate for that, which is not great. And every game has stuff like this, right? Every game has things that are not perfect, but you just have to put in other mechanics to compensate for it. Like sometimes talk about things being unrealistic in games, things like health bars. The fact that you have a health bar on the screen telling you how healthy you are. People are like, well, that's unrealistic. That breaks immersion. UI should be minimalist. And you're like, okay, alright, I get it. UI should be minimalist. But there's no pain in the game. Like, you don't, in the real world, if somebody shoots you in the leg, you can feel it. You don't need a health bar in real life to tell you that you're bleeding to death, because you can feel yourself bleeding to death. Whereas in the game, somebody shoots you in the leg, you don't feel anything, right? Unless your character actually just falls over and just dies immediately. But that sort of feedback, it's because you don't feel pain. Like, so the user interface makes up for the fact that you only have the screen to tell you stuff. And sometimes people say, well, showing enemies on a radar is unrealistic. That's not realistic. You don't have a radar in real life. But in real life, you can hear where they are, and you have like directional hearing, and you have depth perception. So like it's not, like if like in the real world, if somebody walks around, you might see their footprints or something, and it's just not the same. Like you can hear grass rustling, for example, and I guess some games have that. But a lot of games, like when an enemy walks through the grass, they don't make any sound because there's no, like it's not put into the game, right? The grass is just decorative. Or like in the real world, you might like step on a dry twig and it snaps, and then you can hear them. But in games, that doesn't happen because there's no dry twigs on the ground, and there's no physics, and there's no breaking twigs. So in the real world, there are a lot more things happening. There's more information in the real world. And in the game, what you do then is you just have a radar, and you have markers on the radar showing your enemies nearby. And yes, that's unrealistic, but that compensates for the fact that you are missing a lot of environmental information that you would have if it was realistic. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one unrealistic thing making up for another unrealistic thing. Because it's a game, like it's not reality. And so back to Minecraft, like you build a 2-story house with a staircase for the villagers, and you're like, okay, this is your house. When you want to get out of the house, go downstairs and go out of the house. In your mind, you think that's quite reasonable. But then when you watch them do it, their pathfinding is so bad that they get stuck on the stairs. Even though you walk up and down the stairs just fine, they get stuck on the stairs for no good reason, and then they never leave the house. And you're like, well, that's not. Is that my fault? That's not my fault. that's their fault. But their fault. It's still your problem because they're not going to fix the problem. You have to fix the problem. This over-reliance over-reliance on game mechanics that are supposed to be clever but isn't is a real shame. Alright. Hey, we are surprisingly... Well, maybe we're not. I was expecting this to be really boring, and maybe it's my expectations that make me feel like this is going quite fast. When in fact we've been doing this for, I don't know, an hour? How long have we been doing this? We've been doing this for some time. I guess I expected this to be really boring, and so therefore I'm not surprised when it is boring. We're not done, by the way. We're not even halfway done, because we still have to dig 2 blocks above us. And then we have to dig the ground out and pave the ground back in. Because the ground, we don't want it to be just, stone and things. We want it to be an actual texture. And then we have to do the same for the walls. We have to dig the walls out and then pave it back in. So, yeah, no, we're not even halfway done. We're maybe like a third of the way done. Actually, no, not even that. Less, never mind. We're nowhere near done. And I don't know how far away the villages remain active. Like, I'm a little bit away from them. Are they still moving around? Like, is their AI still active, or am I too far away for them to be doing anything now? Because what I need them to do is find all the doors that I've built for them. So they can make more babies. Make a librarian, make a cleric. There are ways to glitch your game in that if you build like a pitfall trap, so the villagers have them like fall away from the village, And once they're outside the boundaries of the village doesn't count them anymore. And so then you can get infinite villagers, and that can break your game. Because there's just too many villagers in the game, and so then the game crashes. But you know, if you like have like water flowing out away from the village into a cave underground, you can just keep piling up your villagers inside the cave. Again, it's like these failures in game mechanics, right? Very similar to the AI failure, where you design this game mechanic that is supposed to function in a certain way, but your game is complex, like Minecraft is complex. And so then you get these unexpected outcomes when you don't consider all the possibilities, and you really can't. Or maybe you can. I guess with enough game testing you can solve most of them. I feel like, and this is a good reason, a good argument against unnecessary complexity in games. And I would argue that the villages are unnecessarily complex. And I say that not really from a theoretical point of view, but from just a very practical point of view, that the villagers mess themselves up a lot of the time. Like they can breed out of control and break your game that way. Or they can get stuck on staircases, or they can like fall off balconies. So like when I say I think they're overly complicated, it's like empirical, based on empirical evidence. When you play the game, you see them doing stupid things. Okay, that's right. Just looking at the staircase. Alright, so the lower half of this space has been excavated out. Let me just go back upstairs. We need to make more pickaxes. And I also want to check on the villagers to see what kind of shenanigans they've gotten themselves into. Sure, let's just chuck all of that in there. Oh, we're full.